Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of our Game Maker series. We're here today, me, Cameron Warren, and my co-host Jacob Price, and we're with our special guest, Mario from Bit Studios, to talk about game development, life as an independent video game developer, and all the ins and outs of designing the video games that you guys like to play. Mario, how are you doing? Welcome into the show.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm doing great. Thank you for having me here. I'm super happy to participate in this interview, and I hope everyone enjoys.
And Mario, tell everybody where you're hailing from, just so they know.
Oh yeah, I'm from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. What's up? It's 4 hours forwards compared to where you are right now.
How's the weather in Rio right now? Because it just snowed this morning and I'm feeling a little depressed.
Oh my god. I could jump into the pool right now because it's super hot.
So I'm super jealous. Well, Mario, thank you so much for joining us. Today we're gonna talk to you about all things game development, your thoughts behind, how you think about game design, your journey kind of as a developer, how you came to create your big game, which is Super Hiking League. You can see it on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening, you can see that footage on YouTube. But Mario, why don't we kick it off and just have you just give us a little brief introduction about yourself, where you're from, maybe a little bit about how you got into game development, and then we'll get into some deeper questions.
Sure. I was born and raised in Rio. I'm 40 years old. I've been working with game development for about 16 years. I started working, it was very amateurish, the first game we made, because game development in Brazil was basically non-existent, and there was no indie games. There were indie games, but they weren't called that. There was not that wave of indie yet. So nobody knew how to do anything, and we just wanted to make a game. So we got 10 people together, and we tried to make something in the lines of Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, with 10 inexperienced people. So needless to say, it didn't work very well, but it was a great learning experience for everyone. Many people from that team chose another career path, but I stuck with game development because it's my passion. So I got a job at another company in Rio that develops games. They mostly develop advertisement games. So it was, to get more experience, get some funding for myself. Then we tried another venture during the Facebook games craze. This time, only 3. This worked a little bit better. We could release a few games. One of the games had a million hits. People played that.
Oh, wow.
What's the million hit one called?
It's a joke game about a politician in Brazil, Tiririca. He used to be a clown, and he applied for politics, and he actually won. So we made a game about him. We didn't ask his permission. We just did it, and never had a problem with that. Then I joined the old company that I was working for again, just to make more money for myself. Already thinking about leaving it later to pursue indie game development once again. And this time I wanted to do solo, because I had built my confidence on my views of game development to the point that I thought, okay, let me take care of everything.
So how long was that journey from, like, okay, I want to get into game development, there's no scene in Brazil, all the way to, okay, I'm starting my own studio? And by the way, it's Bit Studios, in case I didn't say that, is your studio name, right?
Yeah, no, you had said it. Okay. Yes, it is. I chose that name because I'm using bits as ink for my art.
It's a fantastic name, actually. It's great.
Yeah.
Names are the hardest thing to decide upon. I mean,
Yes.
Super Hiking League, I only decided for that name after, I don't know, 2 years in development. The folder is still called Super Pitfall PC because that's how it started. The journey took about I started in 2004.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Before that, I used to make modifications. I used to make a lot of Doom levels. I used to try programming in BASIC, but never something that I released publicly. That first game started 2004.
And how long until you became an independent developer did you work in the industry?
It was 2016 that I left the company I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had enough and I had to do something by myself. So in 2016, I worked on the hack for Super Pitfall. I wanted to get my name out there, do something that wasn't profitable, but I would get known. I thought that would be a good starting point. And at the end of the year, that's when I started making the game. I started it as a spiritual successor to Super Pitfall. So I used the assets from the hack on the game, and I knew I would evolve the game design with time. It started as a Metroidvania type of game because that's what Super Pitfall is.
Right. That's awesome. That's a pretty long journey. It's a long time, but game development, as we talked to Dan Beckerton, he's another independent dev, and his journey was super fast. Although I was shocked on how fast his journey was. But game development, everyone we've ever talked to, obviously I don't know anything about it. It's incredibly hard. I mean, you guys are doing stuff from an interactive standpoint that just normal software just like can't even touch in terms of interactivity and design and like the mixing of all those elements. The art and the technical like together, that's typically like the hardest thing to do is to combine like the artistic and the technical side. So the fact that you can do it, I'm always impressed by people who can do it. It's awesome.
My background is technical artist. In that first game that we did with 10 people, I was the 3D modeler and rigger and animator.
Wow.
I did those things for characters.
That's a lot of hats to be wearing at the same time. Yeah.
The first version that I did for Super Hiking League, I was trying out engines. I used the Unreal Engine first because I figured if I'm gonna learn an engine, why not learn the best one? I think it's the best one. But it was so heavy to open it and compile. I quickly realized it wasn't gonna work. So I tried Unity, but it was kind of the same thing. Then I settled for Game Maker.
Oh, okay. So you did do Game Maker for this.
Yeah.
That's interesting because that's the last guy we talked to, Dan Becker. He also used Game Maker. That seems like a pretty hot tip, Jake. If you're doing your first indie game, just go with Game Maker. It seems like you can make a pretty awesome game with Game Maker.
Yeah.
It's a very low level, surprisingly low level programming language. It can be. You can shift bits if you can do ROM hacking. You can make a ROM hacking program in Game Maker.
Wow.
You can make an NES emulator in Game Maker.
That's crazy.
And it will be efficient.
That is pretty awesome. That actually kind of leads into the next thing I wanted to ask about. So much about Super Hiking League really draws from, the NES era of games. And what I was curious is, for me playing Super Hiking League, I definitely feel that. But that's me as a player. So you as a developer, how did you go about like recreating these types of like the NES experience in modern times? Like how were you able to recreate that kind of feeling?
Yeah, that's the focus. The first thing I wanted to do with this game I knew that because while I was making games and struggling, I was also playing a lot of games, and most of those games were online and competitive games.
Okay.
So I think that shows in Super Hiking League because it is 100% a competitive game.
Oh, for
So
sure.
what I knew I had to do, and what I knew I could do, was focus on the gameplay. I knew I couldn't produce a lot of content solo, so I focused on the gameplay, and that's what NES games were all about. It was gameplay all the way,
Mm-hmm.
action nonstop, no long cutscenes. You just press start and start playing. That's
Right.
what I went for. And the visuals helped because they started with NES restrictions. As the production went along, I just thought, okay, if I place one more color here, it's just gonna look so much better. So
Gotcha.
I'm gonna do it.
I mean, it's true. Each level, I mean, with the footage that we're seeing here, there's a very unique color palette, and I think they look really great.
Thanks.
What's
Yeah.
what are the games just on that note, what are there any specific games that inspired Super Hiking League? I mean, if you're watching the video, you could see like I mean, it's a pretty unique premise. It's like a, you know, versus NPC but racing upwards. I mean, it's got some awesome like, you know, just ideas in here. What's kind of the amalgamation of games that really inspired you for this?
So the first one is Super Pitfall. This level in particular that's being shown has direct textures from the hack that I made.
Oh, okay,
I mean,
that's awesome.
original textures that I made. But as I was making the game, I felt that the game design had to change. It couldn't be Super Pitfall. So um, I I decided that I wanted to do a competitive game, and I decided that since I was going to release it for PC, I needed to make a very strong AI that mimicked what a person does.
Mm-hmm.
Someone looking at the screen couldn't tell if it's an AI or a player. That was my main goal.
Okay.
And I thought that I could easily structure that in the code. It wasn't as easy as I initially thought. I thought I could make layers like, a decision phase and analyze the level, analyze enemy positions, but there's always a lot of bugs, and the AI would sometimes press and release buttons every other frame, and that's not something a human does, and it's very difficult to adjust that. The AI taught me a trick once, actually, with the rope. I programmed the ideal conditions for using the rope. Then when I made the AI play the level, they just warp upwards. They used the rope so efficiently that they didn't, swing down to gain momentum and then throw themselves up. They just. So I programmed them not to do that, but the player can do that. If you really learn to do it, you can do it. It's very tricky.
I'm curious about this, Mario. For the AI, I mean, it sounds like you obviously did a lot of like hand coded rules, which I'm professionally a data scientist, so I've done, some models and like algorithms, AI, if you will. Nothing as sophisticated as you're doing, but like for, business settings or like programming software stuff. Did you use any type of algorithm to like train your bot, like to like go through the levels differently, or is it all like hand coded rule sets?
I have an algorithm that analyzes the levels and places waypoints. There's waypoints for going left, right, jumping straight up, jumping in diagonals, jumping and then turning to the other direction. There's waypoints to go down, but on top of that, I can manually edit the waypoints because the algorithm isn't perfect.
Okay.
And I'm not sure you noticed, but in the levels, platforms are usually placed every 3 tiles.
Okay.
That help the algorithm for analyzing the level. because that's the ideal jump height. On top of that, the AI analyzes the jumps and the speed it's going at, and if it's going to obey the waypoints or not. Depending on the difficulty selected, it often doesn't obey. And I also programmed something that there's a elastic difficulty. If the AI is too far behind, it starts to learn, quote unquote, learn. It increases the difficulty until it starts to catch up.
So the AI cheats to win. Is that what you're saying?
It cheats if you're doing too great.
Oh, okay.
It won't. As soon as it's getting close to you, it goes back to the regular difficulty again.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's fascinating, man. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, and you'll see it in this level right now that's showing is this is, I feel like, the first difficulty spike in Super Hiking League. And this is what I really love about the AI, is that the AI definitely, I mean, Mario, you said it's kind of hard to distinguish at some points. Like, this is AI. It really feels like a player. It makes mistakes that like a player would make. It does things a player would do. And I think that's what's really interesting about this, for sure. And then Mario, you mentioned this before we started recording, is that for some of the difficulty in the time trials, you ran the AI thousands of times. Is that right?
Yeah. The AI has, the player can select the difficulty for the AI, or in arcade mode, I have selected difficulties, pre-selected them. And the way that works is that it's all the same AI, but I have a soft variable that I can use. Everything the AI does is based on this variable. So I can set one variable and adjust the difficulty. So what I did was I made a program that runs every level in ultra fast forward, so I can run thousands and thousands of times the AI. So the AI first does the master difficulty, the perfect. This one I analyze to see if it is doing any mistakes. And if it is perfect, then I run the other difficulties thousands of times, and I adjust it automatically to get the times at a percentage based on the master difficulty time. So that's how I balanced that was my way of balancing the game on many levels. And sometimes I had to make changes to the levels, changes to the AI. So I needed an automatic system for that.
Mario, this is a two-part question, but you mentioned is it Pitfall? What's the big inspiration for this game? Say it one more time.
Yeah, I was thinking about that question because you asked what games influenced. I only mentioned Super Pitfall. Obviously, Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers 3, Super Mario World, for the jumping mechanics, physics of the thing. But obviously, Umihara Kawase, the Japanese game with the rope.
Okay.
Super Nintendo.
Yep.
It's a cult game. That was the inspiration for the rope physics.
Yep.
I have no idea how they programmed that rope because it is bug-free, perfect, and it's running on the Super Nintendo. It was incredibly hard to make the rope bend around corners here.
Oh, jeez.
It took me 2 years to finally remove all the bugs because it kept snapping inside the walls, and it was very hard.
The patience of a game developer never ceases to amaze me. I would have been like, yeah, this game sucks, I'm done.
Patience, perseverance, confidence that somehow it's going to resolve itself later. There are many features that I removed.
That's a good trait to have.
Yeah, there's a checkpoint system. There's a full screen levels type of game that I never could make it quite work, so it didn't go into the game. I was thinking of adding that as a gallery mode where you could see scrapped features, but I don't know how to make that work. It would feel kind of sloppy. I don't know, so I decided to just leave it for a future game.
So along those lines, what are your, just personally, your favorite video games from any era and any generation? And you've been talking about this a little bit as we've talked, but I want to hone in on like, what's your philosophy on like game design? Like, what are kind of the rules or philosophies that you live by when you're creating a game, you're creating an experience for the user? So, two-part question: favorite games that you love, and then philosophy.
Yeah, I love all types of games. Since I was a little kid, I played cards, dominoes, whatever, catch. I just wanted the challenge, and I like to think about effective ways to win. So basically, my type of game is that I like puzzles. I like everything. But if you take into account hours played, probably League of Legends is the one I play the most.
Okay.
Nice.
Yep.
I've played it for 8 years, since 2012. I only stopped at the end of last year. I played daily. I don't know,
I've heard it's super
dozens
addicting,
of
but it
thousands
looks
of hours.
it looks too intimidating for me, so I never.
Right now it is. Yeah, when it started, it was way simpler. You could trust the visuals. I mean, if you had a fireball move and you could just dodge it, and you would be playing nicely. Now it's just so much text to learn. You need to understand the items. It's become. I don't like it anymore that much. I like the simplicity. I like simple games that can get complex. Yes. One other game that influenced Super Hiking League was Tetris Attack.
Okay.
The whole game flow, I try to base it on Tetris Attack. Some of the visuals too, like those diagonal lines in the background. Many things like that.
Yeah. And so this is getting to the second part of Cameron's question: game philosophy. I mean, as we've been talking, you've mentioned a lot, things being competitive, fast paced, and like maybe simple mechanics, but that doesn't, simple mechanics, but at least to something that's super interesting. As people are watching with this footage here, there's a lot of attacking going on here. I like that you mentioned Tetris Attack, because there's a lot of interactivity between players here. And so, yeah, I definitely feel that competitive spirit here. Would you say that, especially for Super Hiking League, that sort of competitive, fast-paced platforming, problem solving, is that the game design, the philosophy behind this game?
Yeah, I mean, the game doesn't need to be complex to be competitive. Any challenge can be competitive depending on the opponent. So as long as you're playing against someone on your skill level, any game can be fun. That's what I based it on. So the problem with the game designer making a solo game is that he gets really good at the game, and then other people, when they play it, I just can't believe it. The game has become so difficult. So that's something. I mean, we haven't talked about yet, but I'm preparing an update for the game called Super Hiking League DX, and it should be out soon, ported to consoles this time, and the DX version for PC will come as a free update for the owners of the original game. Wow. And the difficulty is vastly adjusted. You can find your skill level quickly right away. It's not so as intimidating as the original game.
That's awesome, man. That's so coming to all, like, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, everything.
Yeah, the three main ones, and PC.
So on that note, when you're talking about difficulty, so this is something we talk about on the podcast a lot, is accessibility, right? So Jake's recently become a huge Dark Souls fan, which he likes to talk about, and it's like Dark Souls is definitely in the zeitgeist of, like, I mean, people worship that game because of its difficulty, because it's literally because it's hard, and games have kind of, until Dark Souls came out, everything leaned away from hard, and it was all about, like, making it easy for the player.
Can I point out real fast that I did not bring up Dark Souls?
Yeah.
Okay. Was I tempted? Yes. Did I? No.
I think it's a fascinating topic, though. Mario, how do you balance, like, because you just mentioned, like, it seems super difficult for the player. Like how do you balance the difficulty? That seems like such a huge challenge for a developer, like figuring out,
Yeah.
is it hard? Is it too hard, or is it hard enough? Like Dark Souls for me, it's too hard. I just like bounce off of it. A lot of people seem to love that. How do you figure out that balance?
It's especially hard for old developers because we are used to the arcade era. I mean, even
Right.
console games were based on the arcade era. Everything was supposed to be incredibly difficult. So we kind of associate video games with challenge and retrying sections, retrying everything. Nowadays, there are most of the games you don't want to replay a section. You just want to go through an experience and feel
Yeah.
like you're being challenged, but you don't want to fail. So
Right.
it is very difficult because at a competitive game, you're bound to lose half of the time if the game is balanced. So it needs to be instantly restartable. You can't just wait, oh my god, you died, then you wait 20 seconds to restart. No, it needs to be fast. That's how I adjusted it. And I made a mistake of releasing the first game too difficult, but fortunately I had time to adjust that and test a lot more and get feedback. So now I think it's way better in that aspect.
Yeah, so that's something that I actually really admire about Super Hiking League. It made me think a lot of Cuphead, actually. Cuphead is also one of these games, fairly notoriously difficult. But, I mean, you're seeing here, each of these levels, none of them are taking longer than 30 seconds to complete.
Yeah.
And so I know for me, like that kind of a challenge, thinking, all right, this is something, it's so much easier to click, retry, continue, whatever it is, because you've only spent, like in Cuphead, it's like 2 minutes. In Super Hiking League, it's 30 seconds. And you learn the levels so quickly, that it's like, okay, it's easy to see where you can improve. And so I really like that about these types of games for sure.
And you get
I'm not-
used to the controls and the physics because the game doesn't have a lot of movements that you can do. So you just you naturally learn fast because there are few things to concentrate on.
Yeah. And so this is a little different than what we're talking about right now, but something I wanted to ask is Super Hiking League is based on a lot of verticality, right? I mean, you're platforming up instead of to the side. And so what inspired you to make that decision? What inspired you to add the rope, for example, rather than this just being straightforward platforming left to right?
The verticality, I think it's basically because of the split screen competitiveness. I could have split it horizontally. There's Sonic 2 does that, and there's another, I think it's a Super NES game, very obscure. But I didn't think that was very unique. I was going for something unique. That was my main goal. Since I based things on Tetris Attack, I experimented with color matching mechanics. I'm not sure if you've played Wario's Woods on the NES. The player could carry blocks. I have this almost fully implemented in Super Hiking League, totally abandoned because it didn't felt fun to climb up with that mechanics that would work going down. And for some reason, I just stuck in my head that I wanted the players to go up. Felt better. The rope, I made a huge list of everything that a 2D platformer game could have. And I'm actually using it to brainstorm new game ideas, because it's pretty much complete, I think. I'm not sure if I should publish it because it could be interesting. People could use it.
It's all
based
about,
on that.
You should publish it, Mario. It's all about execution. It's hard to.
Yeah, you need to find something that's fun and something that you can actually make. For example, something that could be great in Super Hiking League was online play, but I couldn't make it. It takes a lot of coding and work to make online work.
Mhm.
You know?
Well, Mario,
But I mean-
we're up. Oh, sorry, Jake. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, that's something, Mario. You and I talked about this a while ago when you were first, planning ports. This type of a game, very much lends itself to couch co-op. And I mean, so much of this game is, hey, you smack someone with a knife with the rope, and you're trying to get ahead of them.
It
Cameron
is.
and I have talked about this too. Like, couch co-op games are kind of rare, I feel like, these
Yeah.
days. And this is definitely the type of game where you sit down next to your sibling and you're racing them and you're elbowing them in real life to try to get them to mess up, right? I don't know. So that's less of a question and more of a comment.
Is this going to be couch co-op on Switch on consoles?
Well, couch competitive,
Couch
not
competitive.
co-op.
Right.
But
couch
yeah,
competitive.
I think the game feels right at home on consoles, much more so than PC.
Mhm.
The thing that I wanted to work on the AI was because I knew that PC players would totally need the AI because it's rare to play couch on PC.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is a perfect Switch game, man. This is this is
I
perfect
get
for
that
Switch.
all the time.
Yep. I'm sure you do. I'm excited. When exactly is it coming? Do you have a release date for consoles?
Not yet. I've
Okay.
made a deal with a porting company. They are working hard on it. I
Okay.
try to help them wherever I can, but it's on their court now.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, Mario, we've run up against our time limit. We don't want to keep you too long. What else would you like to
All right.
say about Super Hiking League DX? You mentioned a little bit. Any other announcements or your time to self-plug? So go for it.
I guess not much. If people haven't played the game, wait for the DX version. It's way better,
Okay.
and make sure you get it.
And that's so. Does the DX version have a release date for Steam? When does that come in? Or is that going to
Not
come at the
yet.
same time?
I'm planning. Oh yeah, I'm planning to release the DX version, all of the versions together.
Got it.
Okay.
And I'm going to release an NES cartridge with the game soundtrack.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
That is
Yeah.
cool.
With Mega Cat Studios. They are going to produce it,
Very cool.
and we're going to release it.
That's awesome. Yeah, the
Along
sound's
with
not,
the game.
Sorry, the sound's not coming through right now, but this has got a killer soundtrack.
Oh, it was very fortunate to have
I could
Grayson.
turn it up. I could turn it up for 1 second. People can hear it. We'll throw some clips up on the YouTube channel as well of Jake's gameplay, so you can have that too. Well, Mario, we thank you so much for coming and talking to us.
Thank you.
We could find you on Twitter. People can find you at Bit Inc. Studios. Name is up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. And then what is the best way for people, besides following you on Twitter, what's the best way for people to support you right now, today, if they want to kind of follow you and see what you're doing or figure out what's going on?
The best way to support would be to leave reviews on Steam.
Oh, okay,
but
perfect.
I recommend waiting for the DX version. Then on the release day, buy the game, leave a positive review. That's the best help you can give to a game developer.
Well, if you don't want to wait, Mario's saying wait, so I'll wait. But if you don't want to wait, Super Hiking League is on Steam right now. You can go find it. Mario, thank you so much for talking to us. Fascinating conversation. Always incredible talking to an independent developer. We thank you very much. Follow us, ladies and gentlemen, at PreorderCast on Twitter. You can follow me at MassGeneric and Jake at Jacob_ChipDip18. Thank you for listening and have a great night.